Welcome to Her Remarkable History. Remember, to support our channel, please subscribe. The bedroom where Queen Victoria died. Queen Victoria was the longest reigning monarch at the time to rule over Britain. She would spend 63 years and 215 days on the throne, and her life saw a huge amount of change inside of the United Kingdom. She was the Empress of India, as well as the Queen, and she inherited the throne at 18, but she was a woman who suffered a significant amount of turmoil in her life. She married her cousin, Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg, in 1840, but in 1861, at a young age, Albert died, and Victoria was plunged into a deep sense of mourning. She never got over Albert's death, but one iconic home and house where she lived, and spent a lot of time in, was Osborne House, on the Isle of Wight. Victoria regarded Osborne House as a piece of paradise, and it was a beautiful residence where she and her husband put their stamp on, planting trees and creating this incredible house. She even had a miniature home built for her children, and it was a place where the Queen would love being. But Osborne House was also a place where the Queen died, and it was inside of her bedroom specifically, where the Queen did die. But what was the room like? In 1897, Queen Victoria would finalise plans for her funeral, but she would, in the year 1900, experience a tricky and difficult year. The Boer War was very unpopular, and her country were fighting and taking heavy losses and also in the July of 1900, her second son Alfred died. She would state that it is a horrible year, nothing but sadness and horror of one kind and another. But then, as was tradition, Victoria would spend her Christmas in 1900 at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. Osborne on the island was a house that Albert designed himself, and Victoria always enjoyed her time there, and it was a royal retreat where the Queen could spend time in privacy, bathing in the sea and spending time with her family. The house was marked by a beautiful pavilion wing in which contained the royal apartments, and the house was upgraded massively, introducing a billiard room for the Queen to play billiards with her ladies and family. It was certainly a homely house and residence, and walking around you really get a sense of family and intimacy, with many family portraits on the walls. The Queen loved also bringing her children up there, and when she was away from Osborne she longed for it. It was a place of great importance, and Victoria, whilst there, even witnessed the first telephone call being made to Cowes, Southampton and London. But as 1901 came around, it was clear that Queen Victoria was very poorly and ill. Her last diary entry was written from Osborne on the 13th of January, and it read, "Had a fair night, but was a little wakeful. Got up earlier and had some milk. Lenchen came and read some papers. Out before 1, in the garden chair, Lenchen and Beatrice going with me. Rested a little, had some food, and took a short drive to Lenchen and Beatrice. Rested when I came in, and at 5:30 went down to the drawing-room, where a short service was held by Mr. Clement Smith, who performed it so well, and it was a great comfort to me. Rested again afterwards, then did some singing and dictated to Lenchman. She claimed that, from not having been well, I see so badly, which is very tiresome. She had at the time suffered from rheumatism, and she rapidly went downhill in her final years. The royal doctors had to contend with the fact the family could not see what was happening, and the royal family were oblivious to the fact Victoria was slowly slipping away and dying. They could not accept this, and Princess Helena and Beatrice did not believe that their mother could die, and they kept things normal. But the doctors continued to argue, and members of the royal family were summoned to Osborne House, as it was clear that Victoria was dying. She suffered a number of strokes, and the family who gathered were reluctant to go to Osborne. The Prince of Wales and heir was frustrated, as he had to cancel weekend plans, and many, including Kaiser Wilhelm II, came from Europe to Osborne as they realised how seriously ill Victoria was. Announcements were made that said Queen unconscious, sinking fast, and the Queen did at times keep rallying. She could not accept that death was coming, and she asked her doctor, "Am I getting better? I would like to live a little longer, as I have a few things to settle." But Victoria had a number of serious strokes, and the royal family were by her side inside of Osborne. They were housed inside of the different rooms and departments of the house, and the servants were incredibly busy tending to their wishes and needs when they needed it. Calls were being bombarded to the house asking for news, and people then begged to gather around the gates of Osborne House. The Bishop of Winchester and a rector of the local church prayed for her and sung hymns. Victoria said, "Sir James, I am very ill," and the doctors continued to reassure her that she would get better. But this was all happening inside of a small and tiny bedroom inside of Osborne House. What is fascinating about Victoria's bedroom is that besides was a picture of Prince Albert, her husband, on his deathbed, which was kept, and it is a rather small and intimate room. The Queen was inside this for many days during on what was a smallish bed which was in the centre of the room. Images portray the Queen's death being in a large room, but this was not the case, and on the cold January morning the whole of the royal family were gathered around Victoria as she was taking her last breaths. It would have been a loud room with the chanting of priests going on, and it was a room which was in chaos. It was strange, as inside this tiny part of the royal residence such a significant historical event took place. The furniture was moved to make more room around the Queen, and she was slowly slipping away. This was very distressing for the royal family, and there was a lot of crying. One by one, each son, daughter and grandchild was summoned to bid the Queen farewell and to kiss her hand and say their final words. At 6:30 in the evening, inside of her bedroom on the 22nd of January 1901, Victoria died. The Queen's body was left inside of her room for some time. Her final moments were described as like a great 3-decker ship sinking. She kept on rallying and then sinking. But the bedroom where Victoria died was then kept as it was following her death. For the next 50 years this room was left exactly how it was with Victoria, and it became a family shrine, and a bronze memorial plaque was placed above the bed. The blinds were pulled down constantly, and an altar was constructed from a chest draped with a cloth with a candlestick on. The bedroom was kept as a shrine, and to reinforce this, an iron gate was placed outside of the bedroom to stop people going inside of it. Edward VII made this gate and placed it there to only allow members of the royal family to access it. The bedroom features a number of large paintings and it feels rather homely, but inside of here a huge amount of history was made. Following Victoria's death, there was a huge amount of panic surrounding the royal funeral and the state proceedings that happened next. Inside of the small, quaint bedroom in Victoria's favourite royal residence on the Isle of Wight, she would die in a house that, for her, felt very much like home. That is the feeling you get walking around the house. It was a family home, no matter how large, but inside of her small bedroom she died, after being ill for a number of weeks. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.